Sports Lounge 224. It's the all-white edition. White face, white hat, white shirt. Charlie Hildebrand going the contrast. Beard, dark shirt.
Dark hair.
Dark hair, dark couch chair thing. 224 Sports Lounge. Middle of summer. It's hot as hell outside. Do you like summer? Because I'm not a big fan of the warm temperatures. I prefer the fall, I guess. 90 plus, 95, 100 is it's not great.
I agree that it's really hot sometimes. I do enjoy summer, but
what do you enjoy about it?
Into Charlie's personal life here, I don't spend a whole lot of time outside in the summer for the most part. I do have to cover things at times. Usually, it's at least late enough in the evening. It's not a huge deal. But other than that, for the most part, I'm like, nope. Stay inside, air conditioned, cranked high.
There are numerous
advantages that they didn't have 100 years ago.
How did they live? My God, how did they live?
You know, it's a dumb question, but it's also a good question because I don't know.
Even in the cold.
There's no way.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm sure
when it's 98 degrees outside, like even when I lived in that apartment in Brookings, we had an air conditioner that, like, it worked, but if you just had it on for more than 8 to 10 hours, you would have to turn it off because it would get, like, so icy, it would quit working, the unit itself. But even then, in a small apartment, you just turn, like, 3 fans on for an hour, and then it's fine. And usually we just do that overnight, and then would turn the AC on in the morning when we woke up and wouldn't have any issues.
I don't know how they lived back when they didn't have air conditioning or heat. What did you do without the heat?
Cell phones or computers.
Well, how did we live? Because we remember without phones or computers.
Or a designated hitter.
There we go. What did they do? The pitchers hit. Jesus Christ.
Analytics. They didn't have any of those things.
What an embarrassment to the sport. So it's hot. I've got baseball games on Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe on Thursday, and it's going to be 95 plus degrees. So, and the press box is not air conditioned. So terrible weather. Not a big fan of the summer. The heat.
Real quick here, and this is me speculating that just we won't have a whole lot of stuff to go over today because it's kind of bland in the summer, sports-wise.
What do we got?
But there's one guy at work that I work with at the Sioux City Journal, name drop, no big deal, who, like, loves the heat in summer so much, like, he complains when it's not
hot,
90 degrees or hotter. Yeah. And he's like, what? And there's times, like, we've asked him about it, and it's like, why do you want it so hot? He's like, oh, well, you like the cold? And it's like, well, we don't like the cold, but we don't like it, like, to the other extreme either. I mean, I don't want it warmer. Like, ideally, I would probably want it to be in the 70s in the summer and, like, the 50s or 60s in the fall and winter, and never get higher than, like, 78. And during the day, never get lower than, like, the high 50s. But obviously, we do not live in a region of the world where that occurs.
The thing about it is that in the winter, you can put on clothes and you can get layers on, and that helps. Once in a while, it really doesn't matter how much you put on. You're going to feel it. It's going to be cold if you have to be outside for whatever reason for hours at a time. Your face, your fingers may get cold. With the summer, there's really nothing you can do clothing-wise to cool down after a certain point. You can put on shorts, tank tops, whatever. If you're outside, it's just going to be hot. There's really nothing you can do about it when it's 90, 95. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with what you said, that in both the summer and the winter, there's a certain point of no return where it's either going to be really hot or really cold, no matter what you do. But you run into that way more in the summer than the winter. Just because it seems like, I mean, I don't know. I don't have an exact number, and it's different because, you know, I guess you should use the wind chill. But when it's like 20 degrees or so or warmer, you can always just be like, oh, well, I'll just put on a long sleeve shirt and then a hooded sweater and then my coat, and then I'll probably be fine. But yeah, I mean, once you're down to like shirt and shorts or no shirt and shorts or nothing, there's like not more stuff you can take off. You're just kind of stuck with what you've got.
You have to go inside to be cool. And when you go outside during the winter, you're probably not going to sweat. If you go outside now, you're going to sweat, and that's not great in general day. Just going out and getting in the car and it's 150 fucking degrees in the car. That's never good. So.
My favorite is like when you sit somewhere and you put your arms on your legs, and then like 8 minutes later you get up and then you see that your legs are just like drenched from the sweat from your arms. That occasionally happens to me in the summer, and it's like, oh, it almost looks like I peed my pants right now.
Piss your pants in the summer, nobody will know the difference. We've done 224 of these. I don't know how many times we've started with tennis. Roger Federer is 36 years old. He won another major. This is his 8th Wimbledon. This is his 19th major. Greatest tennis player of all time. Venus Williams made the final, didn't win, but another final, and she's even older, 37. What does this say about those two, or does it say more about how there's nobody else out there?
I think it's a little bit of both.
The men's side's a little
I'm
stronger.
not going to take the cop-out answer and ride the fence. I will make it. I'll say it has more to do with the two individuals and try to give them credit as opposed to just downgrading the other side, although you could make a strong case for that. But, I mean, like a decade ago, like it seemed like it was rare, and like I should preface this with I'm not a diehard tennis fan. I don't know all the ins and outs, but it seemed like it was incredibly rare for anyone over 30 just to like win a major, period. And for Federer to do it is quite impressive. But with Venus, like the way, it's almost like she never really had that much of, like Federer's had stretches where it's like, oh yeah, he's getting older, and then he wins and you remember how good he is. But it's almost like Venus just rarely even dips down that much at all. And it's just like, wait, how are you still this good? And now saying that, now I'm talking to myself that probably part of it is the field too, and that if there was, I don't know, someone who was 85% of Venus or Federer, but was 23 right now, that they maybe would be winning more of these also.
The men's side's pretty stacked with Nadal. Again, he's over 30. You've got Djokovic, who might be the best. You got Andy Murray, who's a top 5 guy. And you got a couple other guys there laying in the weeds who wouldn't be surprised to see if they win a major or are in the mix. So the men's side's a little better. The women's side, it's Serena Williams and everybody else, even in the mid-30s. I'm sure she could come out right now 5 months pregnant and beat everybody else. But with her, I mean, the girl that beat Venus yesterday apparently had already been to a major once. I've never heard of her. Tons of Eastern European folks, just who I don't follow it close enough to even know. And there's some people ranked in the top 5 that apparently won majors, and I have no idea that they even exist as people. So.
You don't think that Anna Kournikova is about to make her big run in women's tennis here of Grand Slam titles?
Could be. Get the doubles match. Her and Leighton Hewitt can get together and go back and forth there. So Federer wins another one. He's probably got a couple more in the tank since nobody else seems... there's nobody out there all that much better than Federer right now. And Venus Williams, somehow at 37, maybe this is her last major she gets to. She probably won't win another one, but she's 37. So, I don't know, surprising she's even playing right now. Then you got Tom Brady doing what he's doing in football. Is it it seems like it's rare for this stuff to happen, where you have these people.
The veterans are making their stand right now.
Or these people that we've been talking about, at minimum 5 years past what normal prime would be. You'd expect Brady, 35 years old,
that's true.
Done.
Yeah, all these people, like, not just that, like, they were good, or maybe they'll be really good. We've been speaking of their greatness for
15 years.
For 15 years.
Jesus.
Yeah. I'm trying to, like, what would be the tennis equivalent of doing, or what equivalent of doing what Federer and Serena did? It would be, because, I mean, like, in golf, it's certainly not uncommon to win majors in your 30s. It's not even uncommon to see guys win majors in their 40s. And I know it was a while ago now. I think it was like in 2009, 2010. Tom Watson had like a one-stroke lead on the last hole of the British Open at like 56 or something like that. And it ended up, I think he got a bogey or a par or something, and then he ended up losing in overtime. But like, is in your late 30s winning a major in tennis like winning a major in golf in your 50s?
Yeah, I'm trying to look up here who the oldest. Sampras won U.S. Open against Agassi in 2002. I think I remember that. He was 31 years old, which seems like, it's 6 years younger than what we're talking about now. Agassi won one at almost 33 years old. Federer, let's see, 35. The oldest is 37 years old. So Federer may break that. So the next year, I believe, he'd be older than this guy. Ken Rosewall of Australia won the Australian Open in '72. So Federer was already the second oldest winner of a major. And he won the Australian Open already this year, beating Nadal in 5 sets. So I think he's 36 right now. So getting closer right there. So yeah, I would be... Yeah, the oldest ever. Well, Jack Nicklaus was 46. He's the oldest ever. So, say the golf equivalent would be anybody in their mid to late 40s doing this right here. So.
Yeah, I think that works. In golf, it's just like being 10 years older. So.
Did you see any of the baseball all-star activities? I missed the home run derby, and I missed the vast majority of this all-star game. I might go back and watch this home run derby if it's on ESPN3 or something, but did you see this at all? Either way.
It was the same with me. I missed the home run derby in its entirety. I was at work. I think I was actually maybe covering something that day. Was that on
Monday?
Yeah, I was out. Actually, I was covering a softball game that day. And then Tuesday I was at work, and I caught bits and pieces of it, but not a great deal. But I do know that the American League won 2-1, and I think it's their 12th win in 15 years or something like that. They basically, for 20 years, just dominated the All-Star game.
And the home run derby was the big story because Aaron Judge, he was the favorite. He won the deal, beat Miguel Sano in the finals. Some majestic shots. Watching the highlights, it was very exciting. Looked like it was one of the better home run derbies of all time. And you had some very close one-on-one matchups. I think everyone in the first round was decided by one home run. So they've hit a home run, pun intended, with this new format that they've used for the last year or two, with the bracket and the 4 or 5 minutes and the extra time. So they found something here that works very, very well. Unlike NBA dunk contest where they've tinkered with that and they really haven't found anything. Aaron Judge, this big star, see how he does in the second half as a rookie. People are all excited about him. He's fairly old, I think, for a rookie, 25 or so, but he's 6'7". Yankees, is this not the perfect combination here, the perfect star, 6'7" guy, Yankees, home runs? Could you have built anything better than this?
Yeah, if we were going to use Stacken's thing of ratings, and you need ratings to define success, like this would be
perfect.
I don't know if you could build it much better for the New York Yankees with like just a great big power hitter who's young and will be there for a long time in the country or the world, I guess, largest media market for the team that's won more World Series than any other. I mean, I don't know. The Yankees, I mean, they've maybe won more titles than anyone in any of the four major sports in the United States. I don't know the ins and outs of who's won in hockey. I know they've clearly won more titles than the Lakers or the Celtics or anybody in the NFL, though.
Yeah, like 27, 28. So the thing about it is they have not won in, was it 08, I think was the last time they won. So they've won once in a decade, and they have won once in since 01. So this is, it's been one time in 15 years that they've actually won this thing. So that's interesting because they won in like 81, and then they didn't win until 96. So they was a 15-year period there where they didn't win, and they were actually, kind of like an underdog right away to the Braves in 96, and they won, and they went on their streak of winning 5 in like 7 years. But, yeah, Aaron Judge, 25 this year. Good chance to win MVP. Yankees right in that playoff mix right now. So, anything else you take?
You don't know, or do you know how many home runs he's got right now?
He's got
for
30.
The season?
30.
It's 30. Yeah, and I think I saw somewhere that I think McGuire has the record for home runs by a rookie, and it's 49. Yep. I think I saw. So,
he's got a good
certainly
chance.
I'm not saying he is going to break that, but he's got a great chance.
He should.
At breaking it.
Yeah, he is. Mike Trout is back now, so it'll be interesting to see what type of season Mike Trout puts up. And I saw put in the chat there that Trout's numbers are better, the average, the on-base, the slugging, all these other things, even though he hasn't played as many games because he's been out here for the past 6 weeks. But it is quite amazing. Judge hitting 30 home runs in the first half as a rookie, and his slugging percentage still not better than Mike Trout. So it takes quite the feat to be better than Mike Trout. So he's not quite there yet. Anything else from the baseball weekend? We're halfway done with the picks. Big trade. Your White Sox traded their best pitcher in a. People thought he was getting traded, but they were surprised it was the Cubs.
Yeah, so it was the first time those two teams had traded in. I don't remember if it was years or decades.
10 years, like 10 years or something.
In a really long time.
Yeah, they haven't traded a whole lot, like once 8-10 years ago, a reliever, and nothing, nearly this big. So Jose Quintana goes to the Cubs, who continue to struggle. The wild card's getting a little close. 5.5 games here. The Rockies, for the past month, have played very bad. They got off to a really good start, so they've got some games to play with here, but by the end of the month, it may be pretty close there. And the Brewers continue to roll. I like Milwaukee a whole hell of a lot. And Cubs gave up their best prospect, top 10 prospect according to the rankings, and another guy I think who's in the top 100, and a couple other scrubs. So the White Sox, in 3 or 4 years, they've got a lot of guys that are really good. So it'll be fun to see what they
should, do. After getting rid of their two best pitchers, Quintana, who was like a good player but not great, and Chris Sale, who
it's a great player.
I don't want to say he's the best pitcher in baseball, but he's one of the 3 best pitchers in baseball.
He's winning the Cy Young. He's going to strike out 300 guys. Only 15 guys have ever struck out 300, and he is well on pace to go well over 300, so that's exciting to follow throughout the rest of the year. And Todd Frazier, third baseman for the White Sox, he should probably get traded as well. Boston needs a third baseman, and he would fit with Boston. So probably the White Sox probably not done trading, and their closer, David Robertson, he's probably getting traded too. So more trades coming for Chicago.
Do you think the White Sox could trade their third baseman and their closer to the Red Sox for Chris Sale to get Chris Sale back?
That'd be a pretty good idea there. Trade you.
Because I liked having Chris Sale.
Get him back there. Yeah, he was really good. Boston and the Yankees played a 16-inning game last night, and they get to play 2 more games today, so that's a lot of baseball for the Yankees, and you got fat-ass CC Sabathia on the mound, so we'll see how that works for the Yankees.
This is sort of inside baseball with the newspaper stuff, but the Yankees Red Sox, I don't know what time it started, but it was an afternoon game that we did not even get in for first run of our newspaper, that the deadline was 9:20, where the game was done by then, but they didn't have a story written yet because it went so incredibly long. In a game that easily should have been in the paper, probably would have been the lead story in the baseball roundup if it would have been an inning shorter. But couldn't even get it in the first run. It took so damn long.
Went almost 6 hours, I think. 2-1 game. Still went 6 hours. Twins right in the mix. It's the Twins, it's Tampa, and it's the Yankees, all within a game of each other. So Twins fans like myself paying attention to the Yankees and Tampa Bay and see what they're doing. And Kansas City and Texas and Seattle and all these other teams in the mix. So there's not many good teams in the American League outside of Houston, Boston, maybe Cleveland. After that, there's probably not a third or there's not a fourth or a fifth playoff-worthy team, but they need 2 more, so they're going to pick a couple of them out. Twins get
also looking at some baseball stuff at work. You were talking about the American League and the National League. Looking at the NL East, and I think the Nationals are like 8 games over 500. But you're like, oh yeah, I mean, that's good. But like, they are so far in first place because everyone else in the NL East has a losing record, including the Phillies, who I think have the best, or not the best, the best record in baseball if you're trying to get losses instead of wins.
They've got the best chance to get that first pick, so they're going to get the first pick next year. Very good chance that the Astros win that division by 20 games. I think the next closest team is 15, 16 games back already. So Houston on pace for 110 wins. Dodgers on pace for 110 wins. Those teams just blowing folks away right now. Twins hoping to get a series win at Houston, which would be very good. Twins play the Yankees tomorrow, so let's beat them 2 out of 3. And we haven't talked about the big move yet. Your thoughts on Fat Bartolo pitching Tuesday against the Yankees?
I like it. I do have to say, I kind of wish that Bartolo was in the National League so he could get a chance to double his career home run total to 2 instead of just sticking at 1. I think it's unlikely he will get any at-bats in an American League stadium. But all jokes aside, I kind of like Bartolo Colon. I think it's easy to kind of like him. He's getting a lot older. I don't expect him to have like this amazing renaissance where, I mean, I don't know how old he is. I know he's not young though.
He's 44.
Because I remember, I was playing MVP baseball like in the dorms in college in the mid-2000s. Like, he wasn't young in that game, and that was over a decade ago. So, I'm not going to say that he's going to give up like 12 earned runs in 3 innings or anything.
I may say
I do not think it will be a performance that will go down in the history books on the positive end, though.
In the annals or the anals of history.
Yeah, we'll go anals.
Annals of history. So you want to see him hit?
I think, sometimes they say, or what's the, experience and treachery beats youth and talent every time or whatever. And I guess he does have lots of experience some tricks. I don't know if that's going to get him through, 6 innings and a quality start, though.
Pitched good last year for the Mets. Good enough to stick around. This year has an area of 8, which is bad. Twins, next week they play the Yankees and Detroit. So it'd be good to have like a 4-2 week. The week after that, they go out west. They play the Dodgers 8 days from now on Monday. And Fat Bartolo is scheduled to pitch Monday of 2 weeks from now. So 8 days from now, he's scheduled to pitch. So you'll get your wish of at least hopefully one, if you can make it through the goddamn second inning, of one Bartolo Colon bat with the Twins. 8 nights from tonight at around, 10 o'clock. Very exciting.
As a country, we need this, and we need Bart. I'm not saying we need a home run. we need an appearance on the bases, though.
Oh my
I don't care if it's a walk or if he's got to lean out and take a pitch to the shoulder. I mean, if he can hit a double down the line, that'd be great. I briefly toyed with the idea of saying triple, but I'm pretty sure he's not legging anything out. I think second base is the maximum bases he could take in one hit unless it goes over the wall.
Twins don't get to face Clayton Kershaw, so that's good news right there. So we will hopefully see if he don't die in the next week. I don't expect a lot here. It's a low-risk proposition here. The Twins need a starter, so they give him a chance. But they've got about 2 weeks here to find a guy with the trade deadline coming up at the end of the month. And whether or not they're going to make the playoffs this year, they need some guys for next year, so they can make a move that helps them now and later. That would be good because, God damn it, they're in the race. They continue to be in the race. I don't see them going anywhere. So they're going to be there until the end. If they can win 85 games, they're probably getting into the playoffs. So they're halfway there. Be worth the damn. Make a move. Do something. So NBA, a little bit with the NBA. Free agency pretty much wrapped up. Story seems to be Carmelo Anthony and the Knicks and this trade with Houston. Do you approve of this trade from the Houston side? Does this Carmelo Anthony add? I don't know what the hell they have left to give up because they already gave it all up. So I don't know how this trade would work. But what would he add to Houston?
Well, I mean, compared to the Warriors, the Houston's like the next most
potent,
like run and gun and let's shoot threes. I mean, that's not like completely what Carmelo does, and I don't want to pretend like I can get inside his head and know exactly what he's going to do. I feel like he'd be okay, though, with being like, hey, 40% of the time I'm just going to, set up camp here and try to jack up a three. So I think I approve it from it might be a car wreck, but I want to slowly drive by and see how it works. What are your thoughts on the matter, Stacken?
First off, I need to know what we're talking about here.
Nope, sounds like make a statement, and that will be.
What do you think about this? What do you think about this?
It's an NBA related. I will say we are talking about Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, and James Harden.
Stacken, do you remember the finals a month ago?
I do recall them.
What do you think was Cleveland's biggest problem?
They were old and couldn't play a lot of defense.
How is that going to work for Houston? Carmelo Anthony, bad at defense. James Harden, bad at defense. I don't think Chris Paul's stopping anybody. They may score 115 points a game, but Golden State's scoring 130. So how in the hell would Houston stop Golden State? They wouldn't. That's your answer. Oh, are you talking? No, we've got nothing. We've got nothing here. Charlie, I can't see. I mean, the defense. I mean, they're going to score a boatload, but goddamn, whatever.
The only defense I can think of is allegedly when Carmelo last signed to stay in New York, some strip club owner said they would give him a deal where he could get lap dances for free for life, and he needs to find a way to transfer those privileges to Golden State and just wear them out the night before so they're not focused on the game against.
Could be. Not a bad strategy.
So what I was going to say is that I think the approach that people are going to take to beating Golden State is to try and outscore them.
That's a bad approach.
I think that's
oh, man.
I think, though, that's how they – and I know that seems sort of cliche and easier, somewhat dumb, but I think they're recognizing that they can't necessarily stop Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. You just got to match them bucket for bucket. And so I think you'll see if Houston can land Carmelo Anthony and these two teams would happen to meet in the Western Conference Finals, that you would see games at in 120 to 110 or 130 to 120, something like that.
Looking at the finals last year that Cleveland won, there were a couple, the last game was not very good. It was 93 to 89. There were a couple games in there that were under 100 points. So I mean, it's easy. It's easy if you keep Golden State under 100, you got a pretty good chance. But with Durant, I don't know how that's possible. They can have a bad night, and they're still going to get 100 points. And we saw the one game that Cleveland won. They scored almost 140, and they had like 80 points at halftime. Just incredible. And then everybody was watching the game thinking, well, it's the fourth quarter, and it's like a 12-point game. Is Cleveland going to lose this despite scoring 80 points and a half? They didn't, but Golden State still scored like 117. So
I think going into a game and expecting Golden State to score under 100 points would be kind of like pitching against the 1927 Yankees and being like, you need to pitch a 5-pitch shutout. Yeah. It's like, well, it could happen. I don't think the odds are that great, though.
Yeah, so
I would really like to see them take 1 through 16 next year in terms of the best teams, because that West is so loaded. I mean, now the fact that Rajon Rondo, I don't know if you touched on this yet or not, but Rondo signing with the Pelicans makes them that much more formidable because they actually have someone who can run the point now.
Well, Drew Holiday's
well, yeah, but okay, they have Drew Holiday. 5-year, 4-year, $126 million. That's ridiculous for him. But at least now they have 2 guards who are capable of like keeping the offense going for them, rather than just put it down low to either Davis or Boogie. So New Orleans is right up there. Denver, Sacramento, Minnesota all got incrementally better in the Western Conference, and it's not going to do a damn thing for a couple of these teams because they're still not going to be able to get in past the Thunder, the Rockets, the Warriors, the Clippers.
Before signing, where was Rondo? Was he with the Bulls?
He was.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if he's going to make as big of a difference as Stacken's claiming. He might. But to your point, it's another guy who's at least a guy in the East that isn't in the East anymore and is in the West, and it's just making it's further widening the talent gap between the West and the East.
I think it just makes the Pelicans more competitive, more competent than maybe what they were before, because they had traded essentially all of their guards last year after for Boogie. If you looked at it at the time, I think there were like 7 forwards, 3 centers, and maybe 4 guards combined.
You like that? You really like that that roster construction right there.
That's phenomenal.
The thing I like about it is that they at least have 3 starting guys from Kentucky, and I hope, like a year from now, the Pelicans only have Kentucky players on their team.
And that's why John Calipari is going to land a job in New Orleans.
Travis's favorite city.
It's a very good city. It's very, as we were talking, the humid weather to start the show. Not at all humid in New Orleans. Not at all. I think Adam Silver was talking about your 16-team thing, and I think
Mark Cuban.
Somebody was, and
Mark Cuban floated the idea with Mark Silver.
And I think Silver said something about like just look at the top 16 teams every year, and it's really not a whole lot different than what it ends up being. So I don't know, what was it last year? Were there any teams that would have made it?
I think the East would have had a couple more than, because I don't think Portland would have got in.
Yeah. So in this case, the East would have benefited, but I think we was claiming in most years it's 1, maybe 2. A lot of the years it's none. So they're just gonna like this year. Yeah, this year's playoffs would have been the same. The top 16 teams record-wise made the playoffs this year in the NBA.
This year I think you would get 10 Western Conference teams and 6 Eastern. And if you do the top 16, the matchups are going to change, and so you would hopefully then have the top 2 seeds going at it in the finals potentially. I think it would bring a little bit more excitement to the playoffs. Not that they need a ratings boost or anything, anyhow, but I certainly think it would be much more intriguing. That and on in the NHL, I think it would be good to do.
2 years ago, it would have been 1 team difference. Houston would have been out. The Bulls would have been in. And 2 years ago, when Atlanta was really good, we would have had two teams. Had the Thunder and the Suns would have gotten in, the Celtics and Nets would not have. Or just one team. Yeah, just one team difference, I guess. So, yeah, it's usually about one team. Looking at the past 3 years, it's one team difference gets in. But I think the bigger impact would be, like you said, ranking the teams 1 through 16. That would be the bigger impact right there. What else do we got? Let's talk about Stacken's favorite big fight coming up next month. Big fight.
Oh, God.
Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather going to have a match. I'm watching this. I'm excited for it. I'm not paying for it, but I'm watching it. Charlie, we know how Stacken feels here, doesn't like it. As a non-fight fan, I suppose, what's your likelihood of watching this illegally should it come up somewhere?
My thoughts are, I'm not going to pay for it.
No.
At least not like really, really pay for it. If I was offered to go to some party and watch it for free, I probably would. Even if I had to go somewhere and I had to pay like $5 or $10, I might go just for like the party social aspect of it. But would have basically zero expectations for the fight itself. I don't know. Maybe I'll attempt to watch it through Periscope again, like I did with the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. I think I mentioned this somewhere. I don't remember if I mentioned this to any of you guys or not. I basically expect it to play out like the movie The Great White Hype from the mid-'90s, where if you read the 4 or 5 paragraph summary on Wikipedia, which is a total of like 10 sentences, like we're not up to the fight itself yet, but it's like it's eerily similar so far in a lot of ways, like just to what's going on and how it's played out.
Stacken is just he's crying in the background here. He's whimpering like a dog, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So
I believe
Stacken wants his guy Mayweather to knock out McGregor in the second round.
Yeah. This week did not do anything for me.
This was tremendous.
Brooklyn was a disaster. I don't know if these guys really hate each other, if this is all for play, or, just for showmanship. But
what do you think?
Yeah, Brophy really hates it too. So I'm just so done with it.
They do pro wrestling better than pro wrestling. That's what I know.
Oh yes. The marketing for this is.
Bring them in. Bring the dog in. Let's get this. There we go.
No.
Hey, at least with professional wrestling, though, when they do this, they have the good sense to have the guys beat each other up in the ring. Even if it's not a scheduled match, they have someone punch someone while they're in street clothes to at least be like, hey, that was something, as opposed to just yelling to pay their taxes and other slurs that are harder to get away with now than they would have been 30 years ago or 50 years ago.
I think this is going to be very huge. This is going to be, the pay-per-view buys, I would say no less than second of all time. I think it's going to give Pacquiao and Mayweather. Number 2 is all time is like De La Hoya Mayweather, like at 2.2 million or 2.4 million. The Pacquiao fight did like 4.5 million. So that almost doubled the previous high. So I think it's going to be above 2.5, maybe not at 4.5, so somewhere in there, maybe high 3s, low 4s. I think it's going to be a huge, huge deal. It is the first weekend of college football, so it's going to be a big, what was it, Charlie? It's the Michigan-Florida game at Cowboy Stadium at that night. No, it's Florida State. Oh, that's, the Michigan-Florida game's like at 2:30, and then Alabama-Florida State is on 7 o'clock that night, so that game should be getting done right when the fight's going to start, so that could be a big night to invite some folks over, watch the football game.
Cubs Brewers that weekend, too.
Oh, my heavens. Stop the presses. We've got to add the Cubs. Is that right?
That is. I think I looked at that today. And also, week 3 of NFL preseason.
So. And don't Anthony Rizzo might hit another home run as the leadoff batter, too.
So much stuff going to get buried here. Going to bury the fight. But
I do agree with Krins that although I'm not like super interested in it, I think there will be a whole bunch of people that buy
oh
it.
my god,
I think I agree that it'll be at least the second highest pay-per-view buy for a fight ever. And I mean, I'm going to say he's got like a 35 to 40% chance to like finish as
the biggest.
#1 overall. For even though I think this is the biggest problem, is that it might not be close, but the uniqueness of it, of having an MMA guy against a boxing guy, and that I think if you wanted to like put America in sides in a negative way, that this is doing it in that way, but also getting people riled up, that would maybe get people more likely to watch it as well.
Well,
and over the next month, like, we're gonna really like crank up the people saying like, I don't know, McGregor's really got a shot, and I think it's gonna go from now where I think most people are gonna give him like a 4% chance or a 4% chance to win it or so. Like the week of the fight, it's gonna be like, I don't know, it's gonna have a puncher's chance, and people are just gonna talk themselves into it being really good, and then I do not think the fight itself will actually be overly entertaining unless you just like watching a guy dodge punches for 10 or 12 rounds.
Charlie, you kind of led me into what I was going to say regarding the fact that people are going to watch because it's a
spectacle
versus because it's a boxer against an MMA. Let's say it was a boxer. Let's say it was Mike Tyson or someone of his character. Let's say Mayweather's boxing an actual boxer, but it had Conor McGregor's charisma, if you want to put it that way. Do you think then it would have this much buzz? Would it be this, could it reach #2 or #1 of all time in terms of pay-per-views? Or is it just because you have a boxer who's 49-0, who's deemed the greatest of all time by some, and you have a guy from MMA like Conor McGregor? I think that's more the reason why. I just can't see if it were two boxers that this would get nearly the hype.
Well, it's tough to compare because there's just not that many like great boxers, let alone like white Irish boxers that like the Irish people. I think if there was a white boxer like that though that had that charisma and was as good at boxing as he was as MMA, I think it would basically still be as big of a deal. But it's hard to think of that just because there's so few. I mean, because as like America is, I don't know if we're obsessed with the UFC, but we care way more about UFC than we do boxing anymore.
Right, and
there's just so few. There's just not. I think the thing is that there's just not many examples to compare it to, just in terms of like boxers that were good. I mean, like the last one I can think of, and like the lower weights aren't as big of a deal as the heavyweights, but so maybe that's part of the problem. But I remember like what was his name, Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield fighting in like the late '90s, and that's maybe the last time I remember like a heavyweight boxing match that was like really like, oh no, this is a really big deal. It's just that there's fewer of them in boxing, and I think if there was an undefeated guy on his way out against a hot up and comer who's really good and had won titles and was charismatic but just happened to be a boxer, I think it would be a bigger deal than it is now. Just because like people would think like, oh yeah, this guy's actually got a chance to win. Where I think most people that are at least looking at it objectively give McGregor almost no chance to win because he's just almost certainly not going to win.
Right, and I guess I was saying that the boxer doesn't have to be Irish or white. I was just saying someone like McGregor.
If we're trying to make it like the biggest of all time, I don't know if he has to be Irish. He might have to be white, though. But that's a different debate that we're not going to get. I don't want to get into.
It's McGregor. He's the best talker, maybe of all time, as far as it comes to since Ali. Maybe so bold to go since Muhammad Ali. Talking shit, he's very good. So
Is that a Santa Clara hat, a South Carolina, or a USC hat you got on?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
It's the Sioux City Explorers.
Go X's! Go X's! Bang, bang! It's a Gamecock hat. It's a Cox hat. There we go. The real USC. The original USC. Yeah, so going to be a good fight. Going to be interesting. Should they have scheduled a week earlier so it's not up against college football opening week? Since is that a big of a deal? College? I mean, you got probably it's going to be 1 versus 2 probably. To go along with Brewers Cubs, but
I think if you wanted to do the conservative angle and just play it safe, I think it would have been smarter to go a week earlier. I think there's a good chance that either the game will be like over, or it'll at least not be close enough that it won't dramatically affect numbers. But you're running the risk, that Florida State's down by 3 at their own 30-yard line with a minute and a half left in the game and is driving to either tie or take the lead. At which point, I mean, we'll never know, and we don't even know if it'll play out that way, but I would like if somehow we could have something just to see, like, how many people would be like, oh, I wanted to watch this fight, but I also want to see if Alabama's going to go down in week 1, just to see how it would affect people. But I think it'll probably be a decent game, but I think Alabama will probably win by like 12 points.
I seem to remember there was a big fight. I think it may have been a Mayweather fight a couple of years ago, or maybe it was a Pacquiao fight, where they delayed the start because there was an NBA playoff game or something going on, and like one of the guys wanted to watch the end of it or something, or.
Was that, okay, so that would have been 2 years ago, Pacquiao Mayweather, and I think it was it Rockets Warriors?
Maybe something like that, where like
that would have been on like the Kentucky Derby.
That May 5th at Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, you had the Derby, and then you had a really big, I think it was Game 7 or something.
Yeah. So maybe they do something like that with the football game, whether it was they wanted to wait after the game was done, or one of these boxers in preparation for the biggest fight of their lives was actually watching this goddamn basketball game at the time. I don't know, but it seems like the fight didn't get started till like closer to midnight than like 11:30. So
I have to check one thing here, quick, regarding the game.
What, Alabama? Oh, the game.
You just never know. Maybe UNLV has a home football game that Saturday night too. That could draw the masses.
Hundreds. I don't like talking
the
about
Las Vegas Raiders playing a preseason game. Oh wait, they haven't moved yet.
I don't.
They are fortunate UNLV does not play at all on August 26th.
Thank God.
Oh wait, yeah. Why are we talking about this? Alabama, Florida State's the following week, aren't they?
No, it's that week.
Pretty sure it's that week.
Isn't it?
No, it's the week after. It's Labor Day weekend.
You sure?
Yeah. If it's the Saturday, August 26th, here's who they have to go up against. Stanford and Rice on ESPN. Oh, God.
Isn't this game week 1?
So your August 26th schedule.
There is like the week 1, and then there's earlier where there are a handful of teams that play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the dates of when and what is, though.
This whole thing, okay, we can just rewind the last 15 minutes because Florida State and Alabama don't play till the week after. Stanford and Rice play at Alliance Stadium.
Oh yeah,
in
September
Sydney,
2nd. Yeah.
Australia.
So there, it was perfect timing as far as putting it the week before the football. So that is good.
Yeah, that is smart then.
Week 1.
So they did play their cards better than we thought they did for a brief period of time there.
Week
However,
1.
again, it's still Brewers Cubs.
Yeah, what are these games? This fucking Friday the 25th, Hawaii, Massachusetts. These when do these games on there? There's 4 games on Saturday. What is this? What is this?
I don't know. And then BYU plays again the following week. BYU plays 13 games this year.
What is this garbage? It's a long week 1, an extended week 1. I don't like it.
In addition to extra wives, they also have extra football games stacking.
Oh, that's true. Because they're independent, right?
That's true. They are independent, so it's easier to schedule more games then.
Like, I would imagine, because this Stanford and Rice game was on ESPN, I would imagine similar to the Pacquiao fight, like ESPN was like on the air all afternoon and all night long with this fight. I would imagine ESPN2 would be where they would go with this fight, and they would hype it up all night long. So.
And I also screwed something up. The Brewers played the Dodgers that week.
That's even bigger yet. Even bigger yet. So there we go.
Kershaw will probably be pitching that day.
Boom.
What if he's pitching at night and he's in the middle of a perfect game? Would that affect the numbers? Probably not.
It is 47 days till college football season, which means it's probably about 30 days till we do our previews. So maybe 4 or 5 shows left is all. So we do our extensive college football preview.
I got to pick games. I got to come up with another one of those road trips where we can only see each team play once.
Stanford Rice.
And that also means when Charlie makes his return to the Sports Block podcast, that the America's Funnest Game, Bowl Bound or Not, is coming back as well for a second season.
True, although I feel like we probably don't want to start
when do you,
right away.
No, we don't do that. That'll be
they're 0-1. I don't know if they're going to get to that bowl game.
No, I think Bowl Bound kind of happens in beginning of October. Yeah. Beginning to early mid-October.
I don't like talking about the Knicks at all, but
then don't.
Phil Jackson apparently got fired a couple weeks ago. What? And people don't think he did a good job because he didn't win games. Signed Joakim Noah, which is bad. Signed Derrick Rose, which was fine. He's a free agent now. Carmelo Anthony's there. Maybe he gets traded. Probably doesn't. Porzingis, people didn't like it at the time. Ended up working out. So I guess I would be less harsh on him than the rest. He is in the East, and the East is bad, and the Knicks are bad. Stacking. What was he? What, he was there 2 years? Maybe 3. What was he supposed to do? Especially when we got, like, Carmelo clogging shit up. Did some good things with Porzingis. Did some bad things. What was he supposed to do as far as...
He could have hired a coach that wasn't a former player in Derek Fisher. He could have not signed ancient guys like Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose, who have both been injury-prone. He could have made more aggressive moves in free agency. He could have laid out a different vision. He could have scrapped the triangle.
Who wants to go to the Knicks? Who would want to go to the Knicks? Why is that?
Tim Hardaway Jr. wants to.
Why does nobody want to go to the Knicks?
Because of James Dolan.
Well, that's a problem.
I don't think players do not want to go there because of him specifically. But unless you want to extrapolate and say that it's because of him that they're bad and they don't want to go there because they're bad. Then,
they are dysfunctional. Now that Phil's gone, who did they get? This Phil Bessie from the Kings or something? Presley. Not Presley. He's in Oklahoma City. But I think, I'm not saying that they're going entirely because of Dolan, but he is, without a doubt, one of the worst owners, not just in the NBA, but in all of sports. And if he can't kind of guide the ship into a positive or winning direction, why would anyone want to go there? The lure that you're going to play in the world's most famous arena, that's done. Who the hell cares anymore? Who the hell cares that you're playing in New York? No one.
Well, I don't think it's because specifically playing in New York. I think it's the other stuff that goes with New York that draws guys. I don't think they care about Madison Square Garden itself, but I think it's just that there's more. There's other than like nice weather year round. There's just like more stuff and access to things in New York than like anywhere else.
I'd like to go to Orlando so I could always have access to Disney World.
That's true. There is not Disney World in New York.
We talk
like with Phil Jackson. I think. I mean, like objectively, he wasn't great. I mean, I think we could say
it was not good.
Like he did bad, and that's why he's fired. But I was a little surprised that some people were like, no. this is the worst ever. He's the worst ever. It's like, well, he's not even the worst in Knicks yesterday because Isaiah Thomas was still probably worse. And there's a lot of other guys that are way worse than Phil Jackson. And he at least got you Porzingis. So, I mean, well, not great. Like, at least you can point to something and be like, well, I mean, that was good. So,
But he almost traded Porzingis this offseason or during the draft.
But he didn't. Almost doesn't mean did.
That's true.
Did he do that to get fired? I'm pretty.
Maybe.
Are we sure he's like, I've made my $25 million for 2 years. I stole money from this stupid bastard. Sure. If you want to give me $12 million a year just to sit here and move around a few contracts, be my guest.
Just for fun, are you saying he did the I'm just doing this for the money?
Nah, maybe.
Or are you going to go a step further and he's doing it for the money in addition to screwing over another Eastern Conference team that he was frequently at odds with while he was the coach in Chicago?
Well,
Are you going conspiracy
First part.
theory?
I'll go first part.
And he played for the Knicks, though, so why would he?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh, I did. We do have a baseball trade to announce. Breaking news on the lounge. The
Chris
200
Sale to the White Sox?
Chris Sale to the Twins for their entire team. So it's going to be tough. If he doesn't strike a guy out, I don't like their chances. I don't think he can cover first base quickly there. But the Washington Nationals, they've acquired Sean Doolittle and Ryan Matson, two relievers from Oakland, in exchange for South Dakota State pitcher Blake Trinan and two other folks. So the Nationals have a bad bullpen. It should get better with a couple guys here. So SDSU's own, who's been awful this year after being put in the closer spot early on in the year, has been traded to Oakland to shrivel up on the vine. Let's see, they did give up their second-round pick last year and a left-handed pitching prospect. So off the top here, good trade for Washington. They are better now than they were before.
Did you know that that Sean is a doctor? Dr. Doolittle.
Dr. Doolittle. Not quite sure.
Animals?
Not quite sure that's accurate, so I'll have to look into it.
Neither confirm nor deny that. On the bright side for Trinan is that if he sticks around in Oakland for a while, and by for a while I just mean through March of next year, he could at least be close by and watch the Warriors play some.
That would be good. That would be
And
good.
then you could also watch the Oakland Golden Grizzlies and their pitch. Oh wait, that's Oakland, Michigan, in my opinion.
So we had Quintana make the trade there to the Cubs. We've had Washington now address their bullpen situation. So we're 2 weeks out. Trades are being made. Waiting on the Twins here. We're waiting. And I feel like I'm going to be waiting a long goddamn time. So Oakland was a team. They've got multiple bullpen guys you get. And Washington probably got two of the better ones for not that much. So maybe they'll make another move. But waiting on you, Twins. Waiting on you. Any other thoughts there, Mr. Stack? And we home run derby, you were very excited about it. Now you got a week to digest. How great was that home run derby? The best of all time.
It was, yeah. I think it's. I remember watching the home run derby with. Was it in St. Louis when McGuire and Sosa weren't they in it at the same time?
Boston '99.
Maybe. Okay.
That was the deal in '99. '98. Well, I think the first one I remember was '98. Griffey won in Coors Field.
Bottom line, this was the most excited I've been ever.
Because why? Aaron Judge, Stanton, just monster shots, close home runs.
Yeah, Aaron Judge and how far he can hit the ball. I wanted to see if Stanton could go back to back because I love watching him just crush balls into next week. So I really wanted to see that. There's really nothing else. I want to see Bellinger too. I mean, he's a rookie phenom, so I wanted to see how he would do. And I thought the first round was the most exciting I've been about a home run derby ever. I think it's the best we've ever seen. And the rest of it kind of petered out a little bit. It wasn't nearly as exciting in the semifinals or the final, but
It's almost like the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, kind of. But the fact that Judge won, it's great. I hope he and Stanton continue to be in the home run derby time and time again, and I hope we do see them in the final at some point.
Just for fun, if you have one, what's everyone's favorite home run derby? Mine was the one, I think it would have been 05, when Bobby Abreu won and just like shattered whatever. Before Josh Hamilton shattered Abreu's record. Abreu shattered the record by a wider margin. Because I don't know, it was like the record was like a 10 and he hit like 25 or something like that in a round. And it was just like, oh wow. And that was my favorite one.
I'd have to go 98, 99. Griffey, Coors Field, that was good. And they should have an all-star game in Denver. It's been 20 years. They should go back there. And Sosa McGuire coming off their year in 98. I think Sosa won. He had Griffey out there as well. He had the Green Monster, Fenway Park. So one of those two. And then Josh Hamilton doing what he did in 08, whenever that was. But
although he didn't even win, did he?
That was Justin Morneau, I think, who won it that year.
Oh, that's right. It was Morneau that won. Yeah, that one was fun also.
That was very good.
I would have to say it was this year, and then 1 year that I played on Ken Griffey Jr. Major League Baseball did a home run derby. That was my second.
That was your favorite. Oh, good. We talked about the Knicks. Another storyline that seemingly won't go away. Matt Zimmer, he was on the radio a couple days ago. They were talking about him with baseball. And he remembers as a kid in 1988, they were talking about how to get younger people involved with baseball and all of this stuff. This is something that's been going on for 30 years. Is this something that's just going to continue to go on forever? And does it really matter? I mean, more people watch the home run derby than, or more people watch the All-Star game than the Pro Bowl. More people watched it than the NBA game this year. So in that aspect, it's the best All-Star game. And it seems like All-Star, they're looking for something to talk about. They always talk about, pace of play. How to get people involved, the young people. Does this really matter at all?
I think the bigger contracts that you're seeing, the guaranteed contracts, I think that's what's going to get younger people to start playing more baseball. And then, in effect...
How about watching?
No, but that's what I mean. I think you'll start watching baseball more because I think you're going to start to see more people kind of shift away from playing football perhaps and going more towards the basketball and the baseball. And I think that could, not saying it will, I think it could lead to more people watching baseball. But I think you're in a great spot right now if you're Major League Baseball with the fact that you have Mike Trout, Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, 3 bona fide stars. It seems like it's great that Bellinger and Trout are on the West Coast, Judge is on the East Coast. So I do think baseball, it's not doom and gloom as it may have been a few years back.
I think your two questions were, will it always be like this and doesn't matter? I will say that yes, I think it will always be that people will talk about that, but B, no, I don't think it'll matter. Because I think baseball is successful and it's fine. Now, if you only define success as like being more popular than both the NBA and the NFL, I don't think either of those, they're going to be more popular than either of those unless there's just dramatic changes in sports or society. But being, the third most successful American League sports franchise is like nothing to sneeze at. And I think that it's just a sport that probably won't have as many fans as the other two, but still has like loads and loads and loads of fans and does fine. I mean, at this point, if there were really problems like with baseball and its attendance, we wouldn't constantly or maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I feel like we wouldn't constantly have like new stadiums and stuff like that. I mean, at some point it would just be like, no, there. We're not fronting you any of the money. The city would say, like, we can't do this, but people are still like, no, we want this, and it works really well with summer. So, I mean, I think it's not always the sexiest, but in terms of long-term viability, baseball's, you know, like a low-yield 401k account that's just like, yep, it's there, and you're getting what you need. Not flashy, but it's dependable, and it's there.
NBA's kind of in a resurgence here because of the Warriors, and LeBron's going up against them, so there's that matchup of can LeBron beat this team that seems unbeatable. So I think that's because the rest of the NBA is just god-awful to watch. So there's that aspect, and everybody loves their football for whatever reason. And baseball is still there, and we talked about Judge being the guy. It was a big deal when the Cubs won, and we talked about at the beginning of the season, if the Cubs win, that's be like the biggest thing that could happen to baseball. And a lot of, like 30 million people watched that baseball game last November, so that was good for them.
And how did that not win ESPY for best game?
What did I tell you? What did I tell you?
People are stupid about football.
Do you still watch the ESPY Stacking?
I did, in large part because I wanted to see Peyton Manning.
And then for the next 3 hours, you're like, I got to keep watching this shit. I watched this deal. It was a pretty good...
I recorded it, so I was able to fast forward through most of it.
Right.
And I didn't have to listen to any long-winded speeches this year. The Jarius kid from New Orleans, he was pretty good. I fast forward through most of it. The Israel
Adonijah?
De La Torre Jr. or whatever, or Del Toro Jr. That was a good story. So
Is that a boxer?
No,
I don't watch the ESPYs or really care about them, but if you're going to watch them, I give you credit for stacking, for at least recording it so you could fast forward through like half of just the junk with it.
Right.
I will say that, like, you know, seeing the athletes give monologues that are funny is kind of interesting and seeing a different side of them. And I think the last time I saw it, Justin Timberlake did it and talked about David Tyree having gum on the side of his helmet so he could make that catch at the Super Bowl against the Patriots. I think that was the last one I watched, but I mean, there are some fun things with it. So
I was a little concerned because the commercials leading up to the ESPYs, Peyton Manning seemed so serious, and I was like, oh man, I really hope we get that Saturday Night Live Peyton Manning that we've seen, and I think he delivered. I would totally like him to do it again. Here, probably not next year, but keep Peyton Manning in the loop because he was phenomenal.
Stack, and what do you think about this? The ESPYs are on ESPN.
Yep.
Disney owns ESPN and ABC.
Yes, they do.
What do you think of after Eli Manning retires? If they have a half-an-hour sitcom called Manning and Manning, and it's Peyton and Eli living together, just being goofy and dealing with stuff that they have to deal with. Maybe it's scripted, maybe it's not, maybe it's a little bit of both and they don't tell people which it is.
So it's kind of like The Bachelorette.
Maybe. I don't know if it'd be any good. I'd probably at least watch one episode to see if I enjoyed it or not, though.
Yeah, this to me could be like that would almost be like that sitcom on Fox with was it Michael Strahan? Did Strahan have one back a few years ago?
A show?
I think he had a show on Fox.
Really?
I'm almost positive.
That must have been a disaster.
Yeah, it was not good. It did not last longer.
Disgusting.
Than one, maybe 2 seasons.
Peyton Manning was good. Kevin Durant stuff was good. That's pretty good right there.
I did hear that a lot of people made jokes at Kevin Durant's expense about joining frontrunners, which is kind of funny. And it sounds like maybe Kevin Durant didn't take it in stride like he should have if he would have played his cards right.
He did not. He did not appear to be happy. Charlie, break the tie here. Stacken goes with Cubs Indians Game 7 as game of the year. I went with the Super Bowl. My biggest thing being, like, we've seen Game 7s like that. Diamondbacks Yankees had, like, you know, a last at-bat sort of deal. Indians Marlins in 97, extra inning deal. Twins Braves in 91. So we've seen Game 7s like that. And then you add the Cubs and Indians struggles, and that helps. But with the Super Bowl, we've never seen anything like that. I mean, that's the greatest. I told Stack the other night, it's looking back on it, it's probably the greatest comeback of all time, what they did.
Stacking real quick, to be fair, before I make my final answer.
Yeah.
Prince gave his case for the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Give your case for Game 7 of the World Series.
You have two franchises with extremely long World Series droughts. The game was back and forth. Just when it seemed like the Cubs were going to kind of pull away, the Indians come roaring back. You have
The rain delay.
There. Just everything, and then it comes down. The Cubs are up by 2 in the bottom of the 10th or whatever. It goes to extras. So, kind of like with the Super Bowl and overtime, you get the World Series going to extra innings. The Indians knock one in. I think they have the potential game-winning run at the plate, and just all of that. It's just everything just kind of came all together at once, and then the Cubs, for them to be able to win their first World Series in over a century, the way they did in that close a game, I just think everything kind of unfolded in that way to make Game 7 the best game, not only of the baseball season or of the year, but maybe one of the greatest games in the last 5 or 10 years.
All right, so I have to be the tiebreaker now.
If you want to.
Yep.
Krins, I liked your points, but Stacking, you made as good of an argument as you could, and a lot of times comebacks I don't always like because it's neither team playing great at the same time. But not so fast. You made a good argument. I'm going with Krins in the Super Bowl game.
First overtime Super Bowl. 28 to 6.
Game 7 of the World Series was also great. I'm not trying to say that one was dramatically better than the other, but I agree with Chris that we've never in the Super Bowl seen overtime or seen a 3.5 touchdown comeback in the second half.
I totally respect that, and I mean it's really close. I just think people
they're both good.
In any other year, the Cubs.
I think, Travis, you've made this
definitely
argument before.
Yes.
That just because there's
it's a good finish.
Comeback doesn't make it a good game. I mean, Atlanta, it was 28-3 at one point, and then New England outscored Atlanta 31-0 the rest of the way.
Pretty much.
So,
folks.
I mean, you don't really. It wasn't a back and forth sort of deal.
Yes. Agreed. I make that point a lot. But this one, the comeback was just too much. There's a point where the comeback is too much, and that's what it was here.
It does not happen very often in baseball that a World Series is decided by a walk-off hit. It happens, and I mean I'm not saying it's never happened before, but I can't think of any other time where it's been like a walk-off. This team scored on the final play of the game to end the Super Bowl and the NFL season. And it's so rare for that to happen in football, to truly get a walk-off and to get it in overtime to cap a 25-point deficit.
And this wasn't...
The interesting thing is, you both kind of mentioned, is that the World Series was more of a macro. It's that both these teams had struggled for so long, where the Super Bowl was more of a micro. It was just what happened specifically in this game, where I don't think it mattered that it was the Falcons or the Patriots. I think it could have been.
I think it mattered a little bit that it was New England and Brady.
Well, okay,
that helped.
I'll grant you that. That's true. But I think if it would have been the Panthers and the Jets, I think it would have been closer to the same. And that's not to say if it wasn't the Cubs or the Indians that it wouldn't have been a big deal. I think it still would have, but if it did, it would have been
the Rangers and the Giants.
Yeah, the Rangers and the Phillies. It would have been like, oh yeah, that was the kind of fun World Series. That was good, but we all kind of forgot about a decade later.
Well, Cardinals and Rangers in 2011, they had think it was like Game 6, and like Texas was down to their final strike, and somebody hit a home run and forced a Game 7. They lost anyway, but that's a game that gets forgotten and nobody talks about, and that was a big deal for Texas because they've never won before, and they forced a Game 7. So.
By the way, the Michael Strahan sitcom on Fox was called Brothers. It lasted one season, 2009.
Bad.
Just for fun, do you have the number of episodes that season went?
Yes, 13.
So it maybe, we don't know, but it maybe didn't even get its whole season. They were just like, nope, cut here. That's it.
Michael Strahan, bad show indeed. Lounge 224.
One episode's kind of just cut right at the end of the year. Some
go to the spring.
They go all year long. They have breaks in between, but they don't just end in December.
This program right here has gone 200 and some episodes longer, 211 more episodes, and we had 20 plus more episodes than that on the actual TV. So Michael Strahan, what a great personality he is. Any other stuff here, Stacking? What do we got? The blog. We got we're out at the lake again this year. How's the algae bloom? Is the algae bloom at the lake? No more.
The weed roller is taking care of that, so that's good news.
Good.
We're about to get on pontoon here in a little bit. Game of Thrones tonight, Charlie. I have 3 episodes left to go in season 6. But then I will.
How many left in season 6?
3 more.
Oh, so like you're gonna finish that today before the one tonight, right?
Maybe. Otherwise, I don't have HBO, so this is gonna be a little bit of an issue. But I will at least be caught up, and I can keep following along.
What do you enjoy about it? I've never seen this show. What, Charlie? You wrote something about it. What is good about the show? A lot of people like it.
I think, without going too long,
Mr. Stacking, he's frozen.
There's more than 3, but these are maybe the 3 things I like the most about it. One is, since it's on HBO, it can basically do whatever it wants. That doesn't mean it's like always controversial, but it doesn't have to worry about advertisers and stuff like that. And in addition to that, it doesn't have to worry about like, oh, we need something to create intrigue right before a commercial break. Let's drum something up that doesn't matter, and then they'll come back, and then we'll say it was fine. And there's less of that that you get on commercial TV. I think the other 2 things are, there's so many characters, and that they are so well. I think of things I know both watched. I'm not saying the show's like Breaking Bad, but it's like Breaking Bad in the sense that it's there are a lot of morally gray characters that you can understand why they're doing things, even if they're maybe not right. And then the other is that, or the third thing would be that it's just more so than any other show I've ever seen. It has no problem just being like, oh yeah, you thought this was going to happen. Nope, not anymore. This character you thought was the main character of the whole story is dead now. And you knew that was going to happen.
You never want to get too attached to a character.
He keeps you on the edge of your toes.
Right now, like on the most hated, people in the world list for me, or most despised, I do have a list that I'm keeping track of on, for Game of Thrones. Cersei was King Joffrey was number 1, and Cersei, his mom, was number 2. Through this point here, Charlie, without giving anything away here, but I think now it is Ramsay Bolton is number 1. Me without a question.
I figured you would say that Ramsay was number 1.
Yep, he's a despicable human being, and I want him slaughtered. 2, I think, would be the High Sparrow. I hate the High Sparrow. And then Cersei goes down to 3. But,
what is the setting for this? The time, the place, who are these fucking people?
I think this
it's a fictional universe, so it doesn't take place on Earth.
It's not even Earth.
It's not the same of ours. I mean, they don't say
it's
that.
It's an Earth-like planet.
It's an Earth-like planet, and it would be the Middle Ages. Like now, if we were going to give, I don't know if it's more like 900 AD, or CE or whatever they call it now, or if it's like 1400. But it would be like the medieval times, and
That's what,
highborn lords and kings and dealing. The real interesting thing, or one of, I mean, there's more than one, but is that you've got all these people jockeying for power and making alliances and stuff. In some ways, sort of like House of Cards, but instead of just following one character, it's 5 or 6 you follow. And then that just none of them have any problem of just completely stabbing each other in the back and like, oh no, we were such friends for so long, but you did this, 6 months ago that offended me, and I've kept it secret, and now I've killed your entire family.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that appeals to me about the show is like the medieval time set.
You like Vikings.
My favorite show
You like Vikings.
That's right. So I like it from that standpoint. As Charlie mentioned, HBO is able to do away with a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of things in there that you would not see on any other show.
At least not on basic TV or basic.
Let's just say the brothel business is alive and well in this.
How about this? Is there ever been a scene of somebody shitting their pants like the Vikings do every year, or is that off limits?
I don't remember specifically, but I do know there are a lot of times they have mentioned people shitting their pants. I don't know if you actually see it.
Wow.
Yep.
But it's mentioned. And if you've ever, Corinne's been like, oh, they're just doing exposition to explain something here. I wish there was something more interesting, like a naked lady. There's a lot of times there's a naked lady while they're giving.
Especially in the first 3 seasons. The one problem I have with the show, and it's a minor one, is that there are sometimes too many characters or houses to
keep up with?
To keep track of. Like I know who the character is, but I can't give you their name. Kind of like in real life with sports. Sometimes I know who I'm talking about, but I can't give you their name. And house related too. I'm not like, oh, are they related to this house, or I can't always remember what house they're a part of.
There's probably more characters in Game of Thrones, maybe than any other show in the history of the United States, because there's so many. And if I was going to compare it to something, and this is a weird comparison, hopefully you guys get what I'm talking about though, but like high school math, when you start doing like complex algebraic equations, and like you just don't get it, and then there's just some point where you're just like, oh, now I finally understand that. It's kind of like that with the characters in Game of Thrones. There's a lot of faces you'll recognize. They'll mention names you don't get, but there's some point, whether it's late season 1 or late season 2, and like you still know other characters before that. It's not that you don't know any, but it's just like, oh, now I remember all this stuff. But unlike a lot of shows, there is very little, if any, like hand-holding in Game of Thrones of like, oh yeah, let's make sure that like you get this and this and this. They're like, no, we have already moved on to something else. Mm-hmm. I would say maybe more so than Game of Thrones would be a show if you're going to watch it for the first time.
Watch it once.
If you could watch some of them with someone else who's seen it already, if anything, just to like, whenever you have a question, like pause it and say, wait, who's this guy or what's this place? And they can either give you the answer or be like, you're not supposed to know that yet. We can't get into that because there's all sorts of stuff you could really have spoiled for you at the same time too.
How do you watch it then, since you don't have HBO?
I've gotten some DVDs of seasons, so I do that.
Stacken watches it how I watched like the first 4 seasons of the show. That I'm getting the DVDs like 8 months after the season comes out.
I have someone's HBO Go, or I have HBO Go app on my phone, and I have someone's account, but they appear to have provided me the incorrect information because when I try and sign in, it says it's not valid. So I have to go find someone here and get some accurate information.
And kill them. Do you find it surprising? Because I've never watched this show. If it's on Netflix someday, maybe I'll watch it. Do you find it that I know there's people that die, and I have no idea. I couldn't name you one person on the show. Are you impressed as I am, whether it's this show or most shows, where you can go back and watch them, and there's really no spoilers out there, like Facebook or Twitter. People are not spoiling this, like, say, I don't know, a sporting event or whatever else, where you can go and or a movie. Like I'm watching House of Cards right now. I'm in the 3rd season. I know a little. I know that the guy I think wins re-election. I think his wife's the vice president. I assume in a season or 2. So that's what I know. I haven't seen that. I think that's what happens. But other than that, I don't know anything going on yet. So, are you surprised that more shows are not spoilered out there before you watch them?
I think it's out of respect. I'm sure they have some, there are some people or some sites where there is that, but I think people try and go out of their way.
Or even like once they've been aired, like people aren't really talking about it on Twitter. I don't know. Like I
think they talk about it. It's more just kind of generic, or just stay on social media for a few hours while the episode is going on, and then you won't have to worry about it.
I would say it's probably the advantage of just like people like sort of trying to do the golden rule thing where it's easy to say stuff, but like once you've not wanted to know something and had someone tell you and you're like, oh, well, that sucks. I'm like, oh, that's probably how these people felt in this situation when I accidentally did that. And I think that just over the last 5 or 6 years, people are just more sensitive to that. Like 20 years ago, like when we would have been kids, like there was a little bit of it, but not very much. I think now it's just more like, no, I want you to enjoy this like I enjoyed it. Don't know anything about it before you watch it.
Charlie has known us the same amount of time, pretty much, right?
I think I have known Krenz for, I don't know, like a month and a half longer than Stackin. Not much longer. Which when we're talking years, a month and a half is really, that's really equivalent over the
Stackin apparently now has a list of people he hates. Charlie, have I mellowed and Stackin has gotten more angry through the years? Is this accurate or not?
That's a good question. I think there's probably some truth to that. I don't know why it is. I think I could probably try to make some guesses. Some might be sort of on the nose. I'm sure others would be wild.
About what?
Now, to be fair, I think what Krenz has said is true. I think Stackin has more so gotten angrier than Krenz has mellowed out, though.
I've stayed more than he's gotten up to my anger level.
Yeah, Krenz has dropped some. Let's say if this.
You listen to the podcast every once in a while, and Travis is dropping an F-bomb on Phil Jackson or a JC on someone here on like Aaron Judge or something in a baseball game or something.
Twins.
So I would say, I've probably risen closer to his level. I get angrier. I get really angry over a few situations, but not I'm kind of like a roller coaster. You get me with a few.
You'll come out of nowhere with a topic that nobody else will really care about. And you'll go nuts. You'll be like, Stan Kroenke, fuck him. Hockey in the Olympics, god damn it. Something like that.
Right.
I'm gonna jam an analogy in here that may or not work. And when I say this, I'm gonna use baseball records. We're not gonna do like a winning or a losing record is better or worse. We're just gonna let's say if you have a losing or an under 500 record, that would be more negative, and a winning record would be more positive. So I would say Krenz, like when I first knew him, was like a 60 and 102 team, while Stackin was more like
500,
95, and what would that be?
67,
95 and 67 positive. Where now I think it's more like, let's say Krenz is 70 and 92, maybe 75 and 87, while Stackin is either like 81 and 81, maybe 80 and 82, but instead of like just consistently a little, it's more like Stackin is positive a lot, and then all of a sudden you're just like, whoa. Where did that 14-game losing streak come from?
Then I would say I'm like the San Francisco Giants. I have consistently positive 162.
and all of a sudden you'll have a season.
I have like this year, I lose Madison Bumgarner, and I'm now one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
There you go. Anything else? What are you looking forward to? Not much going on.
I did release something through coffee breaks at work of the 15 best action movies ever.
Yes.
I got one later this week coming out of the same but science fiction instead of action. And technically, it's action-packed science fiction, so it's not like Close Encounters of the Third Kind or E.T., which I'm not saying those aren't good, but there's
different category.
Not people shooting each other and stuff. Yeah, so we're going like the action-packed guy movie, tough dude stuff, those kind. Mostly because those are just the kind of movies I watched a lot when I was in middle school, so I know more about those.
Stack, and we opened up with a 10-minute discussion on the weather and the seasons. We're in agreement. We don't like the summer because it's hot. What say you about the hotness of the season?
I
compared
like
to the cold.
I would much rather deal with the cold because I always make the argument you can always add more layers when it's cold. You can always get warmer, but when you can always try and warm up, but when it's really hot out, there's only so much you can do to get cold. You can only take off so many clothes without getting arrested.
That's right.
So unless you're at a nudist beach. So I would say yes, I am definitely in agreement. I'd take the cold over the heat any day. However, caveat here, I can handle dry heat just fine. It's when you factor in the humidity that I say
humidity sucks.
How was the weather?
And I should say, I think I said this earlier with Krenz. I don't remember though, but like I don't like it when it's really hot, but my disdain is probably not as strong because I just don't have to be outside as often if I don't want. Frequently when I'm outside, it's later at night for work stuff. So basically, a lot of times I just make up for that by just staying inside where it's air conditioned.
How was the weather in San Diego?
It was good. I enjoyed it. Wasn't there the last time we were there? It was over Christmas, so it wasn't as warm. I mean, it was still warm and nice, but it was a little cooler. It was a little hotter this time, but it was in the high 70s.
Is it always good? I hear it's always good. Like it's never bad.
I think that's pretty accurate. It's not. Maybe there's more variance in weather than like in Hawaii, where I think it's just like in the low 70s always. Like there's some mid 60s, maybe some low 60s. In the winter, you might get the high 50s. It doesn't seem to really get hotter than like low 80s very often.
God damn, I should move there.
So it's yeah. Stuff's more expensive, but man, when you just go weather-wise, like it's weird. Like when you wake up, whether you wake up in the morning or later in the afternoon or whenever. But you get dressed, you go outside, and it's just like, oh, it's just like really nice. And it's been this way for like 4 straight days. Where, here, there's nice days in South Dakota, but you rarely get like
a week of them.
5 nice days in a row. Yeah.
There you go. We got stuff next week. Baseball continues to move on here. The football's getting close, so we got a month until we start talking about the football. So there you go.
And championship too, getting up at 4 this week.
Oh hell,
that's right. Who's going to win the British Open next week?
What do we got?
I'd love to see Rory win it, or Jordan Spieth. Those are my two go-to guys.
Good. Talk about the good golfers, stacking the good ones. Come on.
Dustin Johnson. That's my pick to win.
Let's go with one here. We'll go way off the map here. Let's go Hideki Matsuyama.
Way off the map, an Asian, the top 10 Asian guy. Let's pick a random sumbitch. I always like Jason Day. Let's see what the odds say. Let's take a random bastard. We're taking some guy here. Huh?
Miguel Angel Jimenez.
No. There's some guy here named John Ram, who apparently has like the 5th best odds of anybody, which I've never heard of the guy.
Yep.
So John
Maybe
Ram.
golfing on his home course.
John Ram, Tommy Fleetwood, I've heard of him. Another guy I've never heard of, but has pretty good odds. Alexander Noren. Those are my picks to click. Fleetwood, Ram, and Noren. One of those three guys. So 1, 2, 3.
Real quick, just because I know we're wrapping up here, but sort of mildly interesting story. I know, I don't remember, I don't think it was for the British Open, but there was something a couple of times where Schottenkirk would do, pick 5 golfers and then those golfers, depending on how they do. And then the first time I did it, I did really poorly because, I picked
name guys.
2 golfers that I could think of, and then you guys picked the other good golfers, and I was like, okay, well, I'm naming guys I know that are at least relatively good, but, we're not, in the top 20 or whatever. And I think I easily got last place, where the next time we did it, I don't think I won, but I got, second. Because when we were drafting, all I did was I just went and I looked at the odds of who's going to win, and just went down in order, and it was like, okay, those guys are gone. This is the highest guy remaining in terms of odds, and picked it that way, and did much, much, much better.
There we go. It's going to be a battle between me and Charlie to see who finishes last in the baseball picks, although we are expecting Drew to drop out any day now. So, very exciting there.
I'm going to have to make my picks for the next month and a half before I forget about it, and then so I can get that jump start on Drew dropping out.
There we go. It's a battle between us 3 for last. Stacken and Marcus, they're waiting in the weeds, 4 or 5 games back. And you got Schottenkirk and another gentleman battling for first. So there we go. We got Stacken's picks throughout the rest of the year pretty much. It's been working. It's been working. So 224 is in the books. We'll see you next week for 225 inside the Sports Line.